Welcome to Voiceover Movies That Move Us. I'm your host, Heather Bigley, and I talk to people about the movies that made a mark that led to cinematic epiphanies. And it's not always the movie you'd expect. Today, we're discussing Voiceover's first ever sports movie, Remember the Titans. It's a historical drama about the integration of T.C. Williams High School and football team in Alexandria, Virginia in the early 1970s. And it stars Denzel Washington and Will Patton as coaches who have to unite their team, who are divided over race and racism. And in doing this, they're going to bring the wider community just a little closer together. My guest today is Rob Tabor, who has taught history at Fayetteville State University in North Carolina since 2016. His research includes Latin America and Caribbean studies, as well as slavery, revolutions, and African American history. He is also the vice president for Policy Outreach Carolina Forward. So this movie is over 25 years old, and I bet you can guess how it ends. But if spoilers bother you and you haven't seen this movie, then go check it out before listening to our episode. And stick around for the end of the conversation for more recommendations. There are a lot of things about this. One that made me super uncomfortable, even though I thought the movie was fantastic. But growing up in Maryland, where I did, hearing a lot of the language that got used just made me, like, my shoulders went up to my ears. I was like, oh, heavens. I am very uncomfortable. And, of course, the language is racist language that's being used to let us know who the bad guys are in the movie. The white folks who aren't ready for integration. And so that was uncomfortable for me. But overall, I wept. Sports movies always make me cry. I don't know about you.
Even the ones that are super formulaic still, make me cry. You're just like, oh, yeah. Go get him.
Yep.
Rudy.
We can do it.
Yeah.
So I was glad to watch it. And as you said, it was a stacked cast, even though they didn't know it at the time. But let's talk about you. I'm really interested in you growing up in Delaware and being in the band and what this means about you as a sports person.
Right.
Do you consider yourself like a...
So I grew up in a family that was into sports, but not particularly good at sports. Apologies to my siblings for that comment. And then, being in the band, the way it was set up in my high school is if you wanted to do concert band, you had to do marching band. And so I put up with marching band my freshman year so I could do concert band. And then by my senior year, I discovered that I was putting up with doing concert band during the year so I could do marching band because it was a lot more fun. But also our team was good. Now, admittedly, good for Delaware. There aren't that many high schools in our league. For the top, of the 25, we're state champions. But it's also competitive enough that there had never been people who'd repeated as state champions more than 2 years in a row. So we were the first to do a three-peat championship, and then we extended that to 4 years, and then 5, and then we lost a year, and then we came back and won a year.
Wow.
So I was there for the start of that streak, those first 4 years. And we had some linemen on our team who were huge. Pound for pound, our line outweighed the line at the University of Delaware, which admittedly at that point was like Division I AA. So not, the elite, but still for a high school team and so we had, one person who was recruited by Stanford and went on to play for the 49ers. Another one who was recruited by Cal Berkeley. Another one, I think, went off to Penn State. Just some really, truly fantastic linemen. And that, with a good offensive and defensive line, because they would play both ways, you can do a lot in a high school game. And then I think my favorite sort of high school football moment was the way it was set up, and this is still true in a lot of schools, is boys soccer was a fall sport. But girls soccer was a spring sport. And so for a few years, we would recruit our kicker from the girls soccer team. And
Nice.
there was one year, I think this might have been my junior year, where she insisted that she go through the tackling drills with everyone else. She's like, what if someone breaks out of the scrum and is streaking down the field, and it's up to me. I have to know how to tackle them. Like, don't just treat me as like just the kicker. Like, I'm part of this team. And sure
Wow.
enough, a few weeks later into the season, someone breaks out of the scrum, manages to evade the rest of the team, but she squares up and knocks him to the ground. And I think had a little bit of fun taking off her helmet and kind of flicking her ponytail at him at the end of the play. Yeah.
I'm impressed that you know all that stuff. I my brother was drum major, I believe. I don't know if it was his senior year only. So I went to a few football games, but I couldn't tell you anything about our football team. Like, it just wasn't on my radar. I just sort of,
It helps when you're state champions. It becomes part of the school
yeah.
culture. It becomes part of like just the history that I mean, like the stories that the parents are sharing and all that kind of thing. I mean, that's one of the things that I liked about Remember the Titans, which did come out, fall of my senior year of high school. So talking about being pitch perfect for being of high interest to
Yeah.
me, no, so watching the town, the community come together behind the team and just the excitement that gets built around a winning team that also has a cool story, I think, that really spoke to me and resonated given, what I was seeing in my own high school.
And not that far away. I mean,
And not that far away. No, I mean,
as the
Virginia
crow
is
flies, right?
right. So
Yeah.
Northern Virginia, like we would go to DC on church trips, on field trips fairly regularly. Like it was part of, it was an imaginable world, right? Where Northern Virginia, like, oh yeah, we know that place. So
Right.
that's familiar enough to us. We get this. And then, in Remember the Titans, they're dealing with questions of school integration, which was still a hot topic in Delaware when I was, going through high school. So, but the themes of racial integration, how do you bring a community together? What's the role of football in all of that? That was also something that spoke to me, as well as just being a teenage guy and watching these teenage guys played by, people well into their 20s come together, also spoke to me. And then it also got incorporated into, church activities and trainings and other things, over the next couple of years, because it's like, oh, how do we talk to the young men? We talk to them in the language of football. And here's a good football movie with a good message, and we're going to show it to them and talk to them
Right.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was looking this film up, I saw in a lot of different forums that many people were saying this was the film that I was shown as part of some kind of youth leadership
Mm-hmm.
training. This is how, I was sort of introduced to the idea of teamwork and leadership and all of these different things. And the film is so fascinating to me because one, well, let's just set it up. What we have here is it's 1971. It's Alexandria, Virginia. T.C. Williams is in the movie integrating for the first time, and there's a football team that essentially we have. Coach Yost has been the white coach for that team, and Coach Boone is a black coach who's coming in and has been granted the lead coach position, head coach position. That right there is incredibly fascinating to me because if you know anything about integration and what happened to black teachers during integration, most of them did not get jobs, right?
Right. No, I mean, it's
Um,
one of the few, some of the criticism that we see sometimes about, how integration was applied. And I mean, I should explain, I'm also now a professor of history at an HBCU in the South. And
right.
so, and we'll get into all of this, but, I've heard stories from people who talk about their parents being teachers in South Carolina who, after integration, got fired just because they were members of the NAACP. The
Yeah.
NAACP is not a radical organization. The LDS Church has partnered with them on various things, but that membership was enough for the local school district to say, no, you can't teach here. Other teachers or principals were just not picked up or, severely demoted. And
Right.
in the way it's set up in the movie is Coach Boone is given the head coach position, but then his ally on the school board also explains to him a week or two later.
Coach, I'm afraid I put you into a no-win situation. I just found out the board didn't even think you'd make it out of camp. And now that you have, I've learned that at the first sign of trouble,
Trouble? What kind of trouble?
lose a game, they'll fire you and turn it back over to Yost.
One game, just like that. What about my family? We just got here. They just expect me to pick up and move. What about my girls?
I don't know what to say. I'm sorry, Coach.
That it's what we now call a glass cliff situation, right? Where you've been set up, you've been promoted so that people can push you over the cliff. But these are the stakes for Denzel Washington's character, is that if he loses a single game, he's out as head coach, and he's just moved his family from North Carolina. And so that's some of the pressure that's put on him. And then Coach Yost to, stay on after being demoted from being head coach. Figuring out for the two men how to work together in a workplace where they're not really set up to succeed is
Right.
also really fascinating. Yeah.
And they each have sort of their own allies, their own sort of supporter who is, kind of in the room with them. Here's the black coach that's also a friend that can kind of side with
the line coach, and then the white coach who's doing special teams. And so you have those intra-racial conversations, right, within that community that we have perspective on in the movie. And I thought that was a really interesting storytelling device to just be able to get into the heads of these different coaches and how they're thinking through things. I thought that was set up nicely. And then they also have their own allies on the outside, right, where Coach Yost has to, when the game is kind of rigged against T.C. Williams, because they're like, okay, this has been a nice story, but this has gone far enough, has to stand up to the ref whom he knows personally.
I know all about it, Titus.
What are you talking about, Billy?
You call this game fair, or I'll go to the papers. I don't care if I go down with you. But before God, I swear I'll see every last one of you thrown in jail.
You dig your own grave.
Defense!
And this is also going to ruin his chances for the Virginia Hall of Fame.
Coach, I took a straw poll. You just lost yourself the Hall of Fame.
Which is a big deal. The Virginia High School Football Hall of Fame is a big deal if you're a high school football coach. This is the peak, the summit of his career. And to me, that was also one of those, I think, early teachings about what we now consider to be allyship, right, in the literature of, he could say all the nice things he wanted to Coach Boone, to the players, but until he was willing to stand up to his friends and his community of, hey, what's happening here is wrong, and put himself at some professional risk to do so. That's like, okay, this is when that moment of, okay, this is sort of when he's reaching another level on his own character growth and arc.
Yeah. So the most of the drama that's in front of us is watching the white players and the black players learn how to work together and to become a true team. And the movie does this nice job of creating pairs. So we have like Julius and Gary
Bertier, yeah.
Bertier, which every time they said the name, I was like, Bertier?
Bertier. No. It's a sound. Bertier.
Bertier. We also had PD and Alan, and then we had kind of Rev and Ronnie, and they were these pairs of white players and black players, or I've listed them as black players and white players, who have to sort of come together, figure out how to work together, and then their being able to do that is going to sort of signal to the rest of the team, even if I don't agree with this, I have to fall in line. There's not too many. There's only really one player that sticks out as I don't want to do this. And he's kind of ousted from the team at one point.
Which is a key moment for the team coming together, right? Like, both Bertier being able to call Ray out. I mean, when Ray had been his buddy, we see them together a lot early on in the movie. Yeah. And what we see is, in some ways, I mean, Bertier cares a lot about his community and he wants to be a hero, and he's seen as a leader by the other white players. He's already seen as this all-American football player and this hero, and Ray will kind of reinforce how Bertier's using this leadership to say, okay, we're going to stand up for the white players, we're going to protect them. And when Bertier being pushed in a lot of ways by Julius Campbell to expand his thinking, and that, Campbell saying, hey, look, this is dragging down the team. I'm playing selfish football because everyone's playing selfish football.
Honestly, I think you're nothing. Nothing but a pure waste of God-given talent. You don't listen to nobody, man. Not even Doc or Boone. Shiver push on the line every time, man. You blow right past them. Push them, pull them, do something. You can't run over everybody in this league. And every time you do, you leave one of your teammates hanging out to dry. Me in particular.
Why should I give a hoot about you? Huh? Or anybody else out there? You want to talk about a waste, you the captain, right?
Right.
Captain's supposed to be the leader, right?
Right.
You got a job?
I have a job.
You been doing your job?
I've been doing my job.
Then why don't you tell your white buddies to block for Rev better? Because they have not blocked for him worth a plug nickel, and you know it. Nobody plays, yourself included. I'm supposed to wear myself out for the team? What team? No, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look out for myself and I'm gonna get mine.
See, man, that's the worst attitude I ever heard.
Attitude reflect leadership, Captain.
And that starts to transform Berthier's path, and then he has to both call out Ray, and he makes fun of him in practice, in front of all the other players, right?
Whatever it is, it ain't blocking.
Give me a break.
You want a break? I'll give you a break. Me and Julius.
Wait a minute. Just let them
We
handle
get to
this.
Rev once, just one time. I swear to God, I'm gonna hit you so hard by the time you come to. Ooh, boy, you're gonna need a new haircut. You understand me? Let's play, fellas.
On the ball, let's run it again.
Let's go, everybody. Let's go. All right. My side.
Come on, me.
You all right, Big Petey? You all right?
You really stuck him, Campbell.
Yeah, I love me a little contact, Petey.
Left side.
Strong side.
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 And that's a big signal to the team, and especially to Julius of, okay, I can start trusting this guy. And then, bonding, going from, and we see this with the buses they initially are on camp, right? Where they start with two buses, one all white players, one all black players, and like some congregation happens, but it's also, when is that kind of congregation appropriate and when is it a problem? And it's a problem when you have to come together as a football team. And so Coach Boone gets on the buses, orders everyone off.
All right, listen up. I want everybody off the bus. Let's go. Follow me, everybody. Let's go right now. All right, everybody off the bus. Listen up. I don't care if you're black, green, blue, white, or orange. I want all of my defensive players on this side, all players going out for offense over here, right now. Let's move. Let's move. Let's move. Let's move. You and you. Offensive bus, sit together. You and you, defensive bus, sit together. Get comfortable, too. Because the person that I have you sitting next to is the same one that you'll be rooming with for the duration of this camp.
And he's like, we've got to get this solved in camp if we're going to have any hope of having a successful team. And so just thinking through both, like lots of different structures of socialization that happen to set up these pairings. He makes Berthier and Julius Campbell room together, and they almost have this fight over this Mexico City poster that Julius is putting up in his room. And actually, they do have a fight that Ryan Gosling
Fight, right?
Fight, happily instigates, or just accelerates, exacerbates, whatever. And so, so it's, figuring out how to build that trust. And what we see then, there's a nice parallel later on in the school when there's another fight. But the football players, both the white ones and the African-American ones, are working together to break up the fight and to clear it out instead of escalating it. And that's an interesting, callback to the fight at camp of saying, oh, look, we can actually build community here and keep the peace.
Yeah. I have to say, while I was watching the film, I thought of all the things that the film doesn't talk about, all the different problems that could have occurred. Like, as soon as black football players start dating white girls, right? We don't get anything like that. We also don't get, this black player versus this white player going up for the same position. Right?
I mean, I'm actually going to push back on that a little bit, because you don't necessarily delve into it in too much, whatever. But what you do get is little hints of it, right? And this is something the filmmakers do really well. So the fight that happens in the high school happens because one of the black football players is talking to one of the white female students, right? One of the white girls. And one of the white high school guys comes over and is like,
You talking to my girl?
I don't see any livestock around here, so I don't know what you're talking about.
The black football player kind of lips off of like, I don't see any livestock around here. Yeah. Right. So you must be confused. And that's what leads to the fight. But like that tension there, right? Of what, and which we get into, in like the myth of lynching is that, this black man made a pass at a white woman and therefore we must kill him, but we're going to trump up these charges and all this other stuff. But yeah, no, so we get a little element of that. And then after camp, we see Sunshine, Ronnie Bass, trying to take some of the black players into a restaurant. And they tell him like, hey, this is Virginia, this is 1971. And Ronnie, who's canonically, like in the movie, just come from California, is like, oh no, that's all over and done with, that's in the past. And the store owner kicks them out and also makes a derogatory comment toward Ronnie. And they actually refer back, and this is one of the things that I think turns the movie from just a simple morality tale to something a little bit more nuanced. I mean, it's still a Disney film about sports at the end of the day. But, they refer back to camp of saying,
so what? We won a few games. And y'all fools think that's something? Man, that ain't nothing, y'all. And you know what else? We ain't nothing either. Yeah, we came together in camp. Cool. But then we're right back here and the world tells us that they don't want us to be together. We fall apart like we ain't a damn bit of nothing, man. And y'all think we done won something? Man, we ain't won nothing, y'all. Nothing.
Rev, what's that you're always telling me when I get sick of trying to keep up with my grades and stuff? Even youths grow tired and weary. Even young men stumble and fall, but those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength.
See, amen. Amen. That's what I'm talking about. Amen. Amen, right?
That's right, right?
Yeah.
They will soar on wings like eagles.
Like eagles, y'all. Like eagles, y'all.
They will walk and not grow faint.
Can I get an amen? Yeah.
Playing broken Friday night, y'all. Y'all gonna play like you ain't got no heart? No! You all want a victory? Yeah! You all want a victory?
But they have this team meeting, backed up by some of the other sort of lead players of like, hey, we need to come together. We need to talk. We need to, actually play together. And what we see too is the coaches themselves, they're encouraging in the players, but they also have that growth. Even in as late as the state championship, right? Where, Yost has to ask for help from Boone on defense.
I hope you boys have learned as much from me this year as I've learned from you. You've taught this city how to trust the soul of a man rather than the look of him. And I guess it's about time I joined the club. Herman, I sure could use your help. Ed Henry's kicking my
Listen up. This is our time now. Second half is our time. We're gonna make some changes on defense. They're spreading us out too far. We're gonna put Sunshine, Allen, Glasgow, Davis. You're gonna play both ways. Rest of the game. I don't want a receiver to get across that line of scrimmage. Coach Yost will tell you where you're playing, all right? Let's go. It's our time. Everybody in. Our time, our time, our time. Titans on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Boone has to do a trick play, which he had been adamantly against.
Get a timeout. Timeout.
Coach, just slant to a strong side every time. You gotta catch him in that slant and let him over pursuit. He's onto your game. You gotta throw something at him he's not ready for.
Rev! Where's Rev?
Yes, sir.
All right, listen. You ready to run?
Yes, sir.
Fake 23 blast with a backside George reverse. You got that? Fake 23 blast with a backside George reverse like your life depended upon it. Let's go. Let's go.
And then what we see, in case you don't get the metaphor and need to be beat over the head with it, you have, Sunshine blocking for Rev, right? Like all the way, who's hurt his hand and can't throw anymore, but they do a quick like reverse play, whatever, and like trick the team. But so you have this white player literally like clearing the field for a black player to score the winning goal, like winning touchdown in the Virginia State High School Championship, right? But it's because the coaches also figured out, oh, we can't just like keep to our own corners where one runs the offense, the other one runs the defense. We actually have to work together in order to win this season. And so, yeah, no, because they solved a lot of things at camp, but they also recognize that you have to keep building those ties. You have to keep discussing those problems. And then you do get a little element of like fear of the police. You get, some touches on, block busting, where the white neighbors at first are really afraid of what this is going to mean, for their neighborhood and their property values, right? When the Boones move into their street. And then they come out and celebrate once, being a winning football coach can solve a lot of problems. Berthier's mother prevents him from going down to the Berg to play basketball with Julius. You're going to come to church with your mother, right? Like, it's just, and Julius is like, oh, I knew you weren't going to come hang, et cetera, et cetera. Julius is a little bit afraid when the police officer, pulls over to talk to him of like, okay, why is this police officer, pulled over to talk to me? I'm not doing anything. I'm just here to see Berthier.
Heck of a game you boys played last night.
Thank you, folks.
Best defense I've seen in 20 years. Tell that coach of yours to keep up the good work.
Oh yeah, I'll do that.
But the police officer just congratulates him on a game well played. Yes. But you have that hint that it could have been that, Campbell felt in danger a little bit.
There is this interesting thing for me. There are so few female characters, and the two white characters that actually have lines are Berthier's mom and his girlfriend, and both of them are going to be convinced eventually by Julius himself, right? That this is a good person, and I have made assumptions that I'm ashamed of, and I'm going to, so we have the scene where Julius goes into the home for dinner at, Berthier's house, and then he picks up his mother and gives her this huge hug, and, and she's okay. She survives that. And
she survives that. And then she sends Julius later on in the movie into the hospital room.
He doesn't want to see anybody but you, Julius.
Yes, ma'am.
You be strong.
Yes, ma'am.
Those tears are not going to make my boy walk again.
Giving him some courage and saying, you've got to be strong for my boy. Like, only you can make my boy walk again, right?
Yeah.
And then, you have Emma, I think is the name of Berthier's girlfriend, who, when he tries to introduce Julius to her after, at the first day of school.
Julius, this is Emma.
She's very cold. She's like, I am not ready for this. But then, I can't remember if it was after the accident or shortly before, when she is willing to shake, she reaches back out to Julius.
Julius Campbell? Hi, and I'm Ahoy.
Oh, well, I guess we never met, huh?
Excuse me, young lady. You can't be here right now. You're going to have to get back to your seat.
Well, now we've met.
It's nice to meet you.
Good luck to you.
Also, this is Cheryl Yost Erasure, the tiny Hayden Panettiere, as Coach Yost's, the one Yost kid who actually gets depicted on film of the four, who's very invested in the success of the Titans, causing, Coach Boone's daughter to kind of question.
Are all white girls that crazy?
Right, just being that intensely into the team. But it's true. This does not, I don't think, pass the Bechdel test, because even when the two girls are talking, they're talking about the team. And so, no, it's it's a very bro-y film in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the film, I was moved by the film as I watched it. I, as I said to you, I cried. The ending is really beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. And they've set up enough of these relationships where you're just rooting for not only the team, but you're rooting for the people. Like I want Julius to do well. I want Rev to do well. I want, and you don't feel like you don't feel so spread thin, or the characters don't feel so, stereotyped or just kind of stock character. You get involved in their lives.
Even if they are a little bit of archetype, a little bit, but you do get a little bit of depth, right, to them. Yeah.
And I have this experience with history films, which I love. I love to see, I love a costume drama. I love something that's going to pick up like where, here's a controversial moment, where a moment of transition in, American history, where we had to make a decision about who we were going to be as a country. I mean, that's essentially what the film is saying. We had to make a decision about who we were going to be as a country, and this is what we decided. And yet, part of me is a little cynical about those films. In 2000, or probably 1998, 1999, when this was getting made, Disney probably felt like we'd solved a lot of these problems, right? And that's why we can make a film like this, right?
It's because it's all safely in the past. We know who the good people were, who the bad people were, and we can do these kinds of like big moral judgments because we've all arrived, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We all agree now about what this should have looked like, and how we would have acted had we been, involved in this. I don't know, you're, as a history professor, as a historian, am I right to be cynical?
I mean, okay, so this is an interesting thing. I think one of the things that's really important when we talk about civil rights films of the United States or of anywhere else, though it is a genre that I think is most robust actually in the United States, with a slight, second place for Cuba, some of the other places in Latin America. Europe could
shows
probably
up in Bollywood.
Some Bollywood stuff, right?
Yeah.
Europe could
North
probably
African
have
films.
more civil rights films, but they have a lot of other kinds of films, right? Digging into their past, thinking through it. But what I would say is, if you're interested in the time period, dig into the books about it for sure, or at least the Wikipedia articles. Dig in a little bit further, but also don't have it be your only civil rights film, because this was a long journey, and as you watch multiple films, different themes come out, different ideas come out. One of the things that a film that I really enjoyed when it came out a few years ago was Rustin, which was, I think, actually, originally released on Netflix. Looking at Bayard Rustin, who, this is the early 60s, and he's being trusted by A. Philip Randolph and other leading civil rights leaders to organize the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963. As a Black gay man who was well to the left of a lot of these organizations, right?
Yeah.
And they were a little worried that being associated with someone like Rustin would, diminish the credibility of the march. But what A. Philip Randolph did was he said, hey, look, no one else can organize this. No one else can think through the messaging, get all the sponsors, because this is bringing in a whole lot of people, and it needs to really work. Things like, there are films that I think go insufficiently into the perspectives of Black participants, Black characters in the movies. The Help is a classic of this. The Blind Side, if we're talking about race and football, has turned out to be deeply problematic in the ways that, but it can also, I think, be done well, and I think digging into it. And so Remember the Titans, I see it as, is it a fully accurate depiction of, the history of T.C. Williams as a football team? No. But does it get a sense at some of the core changes that happened in Virginia society between 1963 and 1974 as they went from massive resistance to segregation or to desegregation to having these integrated schools? Yes. And it does this through these archetypes and these very deliberate pairings and all this other kind of thing.
There are two things I want to talk about here. One is if this movie's being made in 2000 and we feel like, oh, all these problems are solved, so we can make this movie.
Mhm.
As we look back upon it 25 years on, it feels like we can't say all these problems are solved, right? You know, I think of sort of the way people kind of laughed. How do I word this? When Obama was running, there was a joke, which was, oh yeah, racism is solved. We don't have to worry now because we have a black president. And of course, that turned out to be absolutely untrue. And part of that was why we were telling the joke, right? Is obviously this isn't true.
There's a great 30 Rock bit where Tracy Jordan is explaining that old school racism is back. But yeah, with the Obama election, there was, I mean, and this is something where we get into some sociological theory, but this idea that for a lot of white Americans before 2008 especially, we just didn't think about race that often. You know, this is until there was a moment of just kind of some salience in our lives, right? With if someone we knew, like, brought home a partner of a different race, like someone from our family or someone in our church. If, you know, there was someone at work who was of a different race or background, you know, then we'd have to think about it. And what some sociologists tell us is that during these moments of salience, what happens is you can either become more open to learning more about, you know, how race and racism function, or you can just kind of shut yourself down and say, I don't want to, you know, think about this. And, you know, I first heard this theory, the first time I was introduced to this theory was actually at a conference in, I think, early 2011. And they said, you know, one of the things I'm looking at as with the Obama election is this is a moment of this kind of racial salience, but for the entire country. And so we're going to have some really intense conversations as a country over the next several years. So to get back to your question, I can't help but think about Remember the Titans and the production of it as being tied into this end of history, this Francis Fukuyama idea of this, like, broadly, like, small L liberal democracy is the mode. You know, the Soviet Union has fallen. There's no one really questioning this capitalist democracy with
globalization is great for all of us.
It's going to be great for all of us. And he does have a note at the end of the book. He says, basically, unless we get bored and decide to blow it up.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, and that's kind of the thing is like, okay, did we get bored and decide to blow it up? And then how do we find ourselves, like, our way forward where we're understanding each other as a country? I mean, where I am now living, I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is the home to Fort Bragg, the largest military base in the world by population. And, you know, there are a few lefty professors out there who are like, oh, the American military is like the source of all evil and all that stuff. And it's like, it's an institution, like all institutions. And it's been used for some good things and some not so good things. Like, that's true. But when you think about race in America, I mean, to go back to A. Philip Randolph, who, if you don't know that name, whoever's listening to this, look him up. Really impressive person who really shaped the 20th century in a lot of ways that we don't necessarily realize that, like, this was all him. But one of the things he put a lot of pressure on FDR to do, and then Truman, was first desegregate the war industry during World War II, so that African Americans could have basically equal opportunity for getting wartime jobs, getting employed, coming out of the Great Depression. And then when Truman called for a peacetime draft to go into the Korean War, A. Philip Randolph said, you know, we're going to do a March on Washington, African American organizations, unless you integrate the military. We're not going to fight in another American war while having fewer rights here. You have all this rhetoric discussion, and this comes out of World War II and the double victory movement, but, you know, we need to start integrating the military. And so to come back to Fayetteville, like, you know, we're now 70 years into this integration. And, you know, we had the Fair Housing Act in the 1960s. We have VA home loans. And what that's led to is Fayetteville, I mean, we're not a perfect city by any means, but is much more residentially integrated than a lot of other cities in the country. Not just in the South, but also in the North, in the Midwest, in the West. I mean,
yeah.
Something I remind my students is Oregon had it in their constitution that only white settlers could, like, settle in Oregon, right? Ohio, Indiana, lots of other states would have these racial restrictions on who could move in during these great treks westward. And so, no, I mean, so there's that component of it of, like, you know, if we can have institutions that are basically fair, where it does allow this opportunity for people to, make something of themselves, to advance, to get opportunities. And it shouldn't be just the military. It should be our universities. It should be our trade schools. It should be, our companies. It might not always be someone of my exact background who's, there, but in charge of my boss, right? But that's okay. And, it's interesting when we look at the polling, there are a lot of Americans who broadly agree that, our students should learn, American history, like what we've done well, what we've done poorly, our efforts to improve, that they should learn about different cultures, different races, different backgrounds. We should learn about these struggles in an honest way. We should read authors of diverse backgrounds. And we should, be able to have these conversations. Things break down of like, when we question like how much racism should there be in America, how systemic is it, whatever else. But there's actually a huge foundation or, basis on which a lot of Americans of different political parties agree actually about, what we should be learning in our schools, because we all want, most of us anyway, want our kids to be ready to work in a diverse workforce, to be able to live in a diverse community with people not like them, and figure out how to build relationships and friendships, and just getting along with your colleagues, and how to not be bullies, and that's part of that is knowing that people come from different backgrounds, have different perspectives on things, and realizing that when someone says something, it might not actually be about you. You're not the center of the universe, right? I'm not the center of the universe. And like just taking that moment before we take offense and just saying, oh yeah, okay, where are they coming from? Can I understand them a little bit more? And having that empathy. And insofar as, so I don't think Remember the Titans should be the only movie about civil rights you ever watch. Or the only movie about football. There's some really good ones out there. But, it's a good starting point. And it hints and opens up a lot of other good, useful questions.
I want to jump into something you mentioned before the interview about masculinity, about this movie teaching you a form of masculinity that maybe we need more of.
Yeah. What I really like about Remember the Titans is, so we talk about moral communities. Our sociology friends talk about moral communities. This is the circle of people that you care about, that you'll, visit when they're sick, when you'll reach out to them, when you want to support them and see them do well. And we see Remember the Titans, we see the players' sense of moral community and family expand. There's this great moment near the end of the movie when Bertier is in the hospital and Julius Campbell comes in to talk to him, and the nurse says,
only Ken's allowed in here.
Alice, are you blind? Don't you see the family resemblance? That's my brother.
All right.
Where that's, showing that Bertier's moral community has expanded to the point where he considers, Julius to be his brother. They've worked together. They've struggled on the football field together. They've struggled like as leaders in this football on this team to bring this team together in a big way. They've hurt each other, but also learned how to repair that hurt. Where they don't get so caught up in the past of like who they used to be. They allow each other to grow and they celebrate that growth. I think is really, really important. And, and so Remember the Titans shows how it's possible to be masculine. I don't really know anything that's more masculine than, I don't know, football, like where it's also a little weird because we're wearing tights and wrestling around in the mud with a bunch of other guys, but that's okay. To be
slapping each other on the bum.
Right.
There's a lot of that.
To be a man, right, who's growing up, like going from boy to man is about learning how to lead and also to transcend the differences between you and other people. That you take serious things seriously, but without losing heart or humor, and without tearing down women. That you can stand up and be a member of the community, and be, having that sense. Bertier still thinks of himself as a hero, but he's redefined for himself what heroism looks like. And that part of that is looking to build each other up. When I was in Scouts, one of the big things that, we talked about a lot was not leaving other people behind on the trail. And I think part of the loneliness epidemic, and I'm glad that we're also looking at, like, you know, how our school system sometimes leaves boys behind, ways we can do better. I do think a lot of people in the country are lonely. That might be a larger struggle for boys because we place, I don't know, like there are a lot of guys out there where, you know, their partner or their girlfriend is the only friend that they have, and that's really sad. And that's a really lonely way to go through life. And so, yeah, no, I mean, there's this quote in the New Testament, right? Like, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, and when I, you know, became a man, I learned to put away childish things, which usually gets thrown at teenagers to stop playing video games. And it's like, really, come on. But part of putting away those childish things is putting away that dehumanization, putting away that name calling, putting away that, like, oh, we're all just out for ourselves. But that it's, you can take some time to help someone else along. That you can take some time to listen to a friend. But what we see, I don't know, in Remember the Titans, we see this masculinity of, it's about lifting each other up. It's about, like, learning how to trust and learning how to act on that trust and keep that trust with each other. And I mean, I think there's a reason that so many great, or films that have stayed with a strong following are fundamentally built around teams. You see this team coming together to do a project, whether that project is robbing a bunch of Las Vegas casinos, like the Ocean's movies, or
some of my favorites,
or winning an a cappella competition like Pitch Perfect, or defeating, you know, invaders from outer space.
One of the things that teams do well, or team movies, the point that they try to make, and I think is so important, is we all have different roles to play. And I think that's really crucial, especially for young people, even at my age, like, you know, reminding myself, I don't have to be the quarterback. I actually have something to contribute as the running back, or I have something to contribute as the kicker. And that makes me important to the team.
You don't have to do it all. You don't have to be all things to all people. But you do have to learn how to be part of a team and to figure out, okay, what's my role here? How do I think about this? And how to be part of a good team. And, you know, figuring out, okay, what kind of team do I want to be a part of, and what can I contribute there? And when do I need to step back, and all that kind of thing. But, like, yeah, I really like, this movie and other team movies, because it shows, like, everyone has this role. You don't have to be in charge of everything. You don't have to be the star in order to have a good life.
Yeah. One of the things that I actually found really moving, and we might call it the paratext. So paratext is like the stuff outside the movie. It probably isn't. Actually, we might think of it as credits. But at the end of this film, there's the what everybody did later in life. And, you know, a lot of those people went on to work, like, in local Alexandria jobs. This person became a teacher. This person became, like, someone over at Parks and Rec. This, like, I found that incredibly moving. And there's probably a couple of reasons for that. You and I met at the University of Florida. And when I got to the University of Florida, it was right after the university had won both the National Football Championship and the National Basketball Championship. And there's this attitude of, like, sports are the most important thing that I got there in that culture. And this is the best time in your life is when you're going to be on this team. And everything after this, right?
It's just going to be a letdown, right?
Letdown.
Like, cue John Mellencamp's Jack and Diane.
John Cougar Mellencamp. Yes, exactly. And what I saw in this movie, and what I was hoping that other people might see, is that this was a great time in these young men's lives when they knew what it was to be on this team, and they got to win, and they got to have that experience. But hopefully it was preparing them for what was coming later. And it isn't the peak. It isn't the best time in their life, but is in fact just more training for the really important things that they'll go on to do.
And they don't become world famous, right? Like, I mean, they're famous now because of the movie. And, you know, Sunshine, Ronnie Bass, had a pretty good college career. But he wasn't the greatest football player in University of South Carolina history or anything like that, right? A lot of them went to college. Some of them didn't. Some of them joined the Navy. But a lot of them, are just living life in Alexandria. They're people. And that's okay. You don't have to be the greatest of all time. And it's, I think, one of the reminders of the movie of, like, people turn into people, and that's fine. And that you can you can gain strength from that. You can learn from that. I like how you were talking about that. I mean, we think about Napoleon Dynamite. One of the most ridiculous characters in the film is Uncle Rico. Of if only the coach had put me in, And there's also that a bit of a current in American culture sometimes of, oh, they peaked in high school, right? Like they're still trying to hold on to that glory day. Now, I will say, as a former Delaware State champion of Quiz Bowl, that I like coaching my high school's team, like the local public high school's team. Started doing that a year ago, and it's nice to do that, and, it's great to be back in that world, but it's not the only thing I do in my life. High school is just a phase, that it's just a short period of life, and it's really hard sometimes when you're an adolescent to recognize that, because it's been your entire life, right? You don't really remember that much of elementary school. You remember some of middle school, but you've just been in high school basically forever, especially by the time you're a junior or senior. And we get all of these stock characters also in media. Like, we have a lot more stories set in high school than we do in college because it's a more universal experience.
Right.
And so you get these different stock characters, and I thought growing up that high school was going to be like Saved by the Bell. And that my big challenge in life was going to make sure that I was a Zach Morris or an AC Slater, and definitely not a Screech. I discovered that I have a few Screech-like tendencies, and that's fine. And that's okay. I never really got shoved into lockers, but that I could be myself. Sometimes there's a big fear in adolescence of being yourself and of being perceived. But that I could find ways to contribute to my community by not tearing people down, but by being a good friend, by listening to my friends, by being supportive of, and I don't know, encouraging for us to be the best version of ourselves.
Thanks to Rob for talking to me about this movie. Even though I admitted that I cried during sports movies, I realized as I was doing research that I don't actually sit down for a lot of them. I've seen the classics: A League of Their Own, $1 Million Baby, Hoop Dreams, Chariots of Fire, The Bad News Bears, Hoosiers, The Sandlot, Cool Runnings, Blades of Glory. I've seen them, but I don't generally seek them out. Don't get me wrong, I love sports. My brother taught me how to play baseball, basketball, football when I was a kid. I played lacrosse in high school. My husband and I had a long-standing racquetball date for years. And I love to watch sports. I'm the kind of person who cheers for everyone on the court. Did the opposite team score a gorgeous three-pointer? I'm going to cheer for that. And perhaps that's why I don't often sit down for a sports movie. When done poorly, these movies divide into the world of us versus them, as if you can judge the heart of a person based on the uniform they're wearing. Yet, when done right, these films and sports generally teach us about sacrifice, discipline, teamwork, unity, and believing in something greater than yourself. So if I were going to make recommendations about those values, I'd have to recommend the following. The first is Seven Samurai from 1954, directed by Akira Kurosawa. It's his most well-known film, and it's incredibly influential in American cinema. It's about a village who hires a group of samurai to defend them from bandits. You spend most of the movie with the actor Takashori Shimura, who is one of Kurosawa's main actors. He was in 21 of 30 Kurosawa films. And he's the one who's going to gather the Ronin needed for the team. And then the end of the film is the attack and the defense of the attack. We watch the samurai and the villagers sacrifice for each other, and it's exciting and moving and poignant and truly gorgeous in that hyper-masculine way of the Japanese. In a similar vein, and from the very same year, is Stalag 17, which was written and directed by Billy Wilder, an Austrian refugee who escaped World War II in his own country and came here to the US and then took Hollywood by storm. It's a movie about a group of American officers who are being held in a World War II German prison camp. and they're planning their escape under the noses of the Nazis, who in this film are mostly played for laughs as dopes. The Americans are from all over the country, all walks of life, and they show us what's great about America. Our ethnic, class, and regional diversity make us smarter, make us stronger, make us way cooler. This was a definite theme in World War II films of the 20th century, and Stalag 17 makes it shine. It's funny comedy with moments of poignancy, and also there's soldiers in drag, which is another 20th century filmic wartime convention, if you didn't know. In honor of the recent death of Robert Redford, I'm going to recommend to you Sneakers from 1992. Redford leads this team, but the members of it are Dan Aykroyd, Ben Kingsley, Sidney Poitier, David Strathairn, and the very young River Phoenix. It's a heist film, and I love heist films, but it's really much more about the relationships than the caper, as any great heist film is. It's the film that set me up to fall in love with Ocean's 11. It's got great dialogue, it's got funny characters, it's got a nice little puzzle at the center of it. It's enjoyable. You should watch it. So those are our recommendations. Voiceover is produced by BYU Radio and edited by Spencer Boyer. I'm your host, Heather Bigley.